I think we should start. It's past. My name is Adrian Gussen, and welcome here today. I'm quite excited to share with you basically what we've done in our organization with the implementation of Project Server. My name is Adrian Gussen, and if I try to translate it into English, in our language, in Afrikaans, it's pronounced Adrian Gussen, but I think a lot of people battle with the sort of German sound. So if you just say Adrian Gussen, it'll be fine. I should pay attention when you call out my name. I think we're a fairly small group, so if at any stage you want to just stop me and put up your hand, ask a question, I think it can be a little bit more informal. Also, English is not my first language. We speak Afrikaans in South Africa. So if I do have the wrong pronunciation or whatever, please don't frown at me, just laugh with me, okay? Enjoy the session with me. I was at the same conference in Phoenix 2 years ago when we just started implementing Project Server, and at that stage it was a little bit too early to share a lot of lessons learned, but we embarked on quite a project to try and roll out Project Server over a big mining company with a big bang sort of approach. And I think it's an honor for me to be able to come back again and share a little bit more after 2 years, you know, what happened. Did we pull the plug, or are we still going strong, or what's happening? Any case, so why are we here? I think the first thing is basically just to share the advantages of implementing an enterprise wide project management sort of approach and methodologies within the organization. The next thing is basically also to demonstrate the functionality and power of an integrated project management system. We've got our Project Server integrated to a lot of other ERP and other systems, and there's a lot of advantages with integration. If you also listen to some of the presentations yesterday, you know, when there were questions asked by Stavros from TPG, you know, how many people feel that integration is important? A lot of people have put up their hands. I think basically everybody have put up their hands saying that integration is really important within the organization to have a sort of single view in terms of what's happening in organization. The third point is explaining how a well-deployed project management system can improve the effectiveness of managing both projects and, well, we refer a lot of the times to also construction projects because they manage quite uniquely. But also specifically across borders. Our company, Exxaro, is an international company, and we're currently busy with creating or establishing of a new iron ore mine in the Congo. And I think I can also share a little bit, you know, some of the challenges that we faced with running projects across the borders. So if we just quickly look at the content, I've broken it up into 8 sections. The first is to give you an overview. I think the overview is extremely important because you need to understand our sort of environment, the complexity, the challenges that we had to face with the implementation of Project Server in our organization. Then also the approach, how did we go about doing all of this? Very important is the organization that supports this whole project environment of ours. What systems did we implement, and what did we integrate with each other, and what's sort of the future plans of additional systems that we also want to integrate into our Project Server. The next thing is the methodology, where we typically talk about our project pipeline, our project life cycles, and classification and categorization of projects, because that will give you a very good understanding, especially from an executive point of view, to see, you know, what's specifically why it's important to have all these classification and categorizations to be able to make the right investment decisions. And I do have some slides with some reports that we have that typically support us currently in terms of trying to make the right decisions. So under the production, I'm just going to talk quickly about some of the reports that we have typically from a portfolio point of view. We're just going to look at closure, some key challenges that we faced with the implementation of Project Server, lessons learned, and some future plans in terms of, you know, so what's next? You know, what's the road going ahead? Some questions, and then I'm going to just summarize right at the end in terms of, you know, our viewpoint of this whole project that we embarked on. So let's start with the overview, and I'm going to run a video because this will give us a good indication in terms of, you know, who's Exxaro.
There is a company that has set itself the goal of becoming a global, diversified $20 billion resources organization by 2020. A company whose mission is to create unrivaled value for all its stakeholders. At Exxaro, imagination and innovation drive our vision of ensuring that everything we do today will allow others to realize their vision tomorrow. We have a number of mines where we produce coal for Eskom, other local customers, and export, all to the highest standards of quality, innovation, and technology. We pursue diversification with exchanges and acquisitions, broadening our activities, expanding our sphere of operations. We understand leadership and develop our own inspired leaders, providing opportunity for our people to fulfill all their potential, fulfilling our pledge to be the best example of how businesses should be run. We have pioneered initiatives like our Empower Share Scheme that has already paid out significant sums to all our employees up to lower management level and billions of rands in dividends to our shareholders. Our priority is the health and safety of our people and well-being beyond our operations. Beyond them, we engage with our communities and strengthen their capacities. As part of restoring balance to the environment, we have partnered with Tata Power to create Synergy, a cleaner energy company to benefit both our region and our planet. We have introduced mountain biking into disadvantaged communities, which, with our support of the APSA Cape Epic, gives individuals the chance to shine and grow into role models of hope and accomplishment. Our years of existence have been years of success and achievement. Our record speaks for itself. To build what we can for all our stakeholders, to protect what we have for the generations to come, to lead, to care, to innovate and to excel. This is what defines our reputation, what will cement our role in the future of South Africa. We have the power to do it. The possibilities are endless. Exxaro, powering possibility.
Okay. I think the video sometimes speaks a lot better than what the presenter can actually present or explain. It gives us just a sort of idea, what the organization is about. I'm not going to elaborate again too much on what has already been said in the video, but in principle, Exxaro was the result of unbundling of the old Kumba resources, and before Kumba, it used to be the old what we called Iscor. Now, Anglo America bought Kumba a couple of years ago, and they've basically stripped off portions of the iron ore business, and they used the opportunity then to create a new business, which was then called Exxaro Resources, together with merging of an old Isizwe group that also existed in Exxaro, in South Africa. So there was the merger of Isizwe divestments, which was the sands business that was sold off to Ticor, Australia. There was the KZN Sands and the Makwa Sands that was also divested from our business. There was also some additional acquisitions, the Makwa Sands and the African Iron Ore Limited, which was only purchased about two years ago. And a lot of these changes continuously in organization created a lot of challenges for us. There's every time that there's a divestment or every time that there's a merger or acquisition, it every time created a situation where there were people in the different areas that talk different languages when it comes to project management. Just also in short, Exxaro's got approximately 41.6 billion of assets. If you look at a map of South Africa, you'll see that most of the mining operations are basically in the north. We also have in the Republic of Congo the new iron ore mine that we're busy opening up as we speak at the moment. We also have shares in one of the Australian mining companies. It's basically a joint venture that we've got there. Also, we've got 8 coal mines that in total produce about 40 million tons of coal per annum, which is a combination of steam coal, semi-soft coking coal, and some other coal products that we also export predominantly to China. At the bottom, you can see some of the commodity portfolio that we've got: coal, titanium dioxide, ferrous, and energy, of which ferrous is basically fairly new now for us after the divestment from the iron ore business into Anglo. We're basically entering again the market with iron ore. Just also in short, Exxaro is the second largest coal producer in South Africa, the third largest producer globally of sands. We've got exposure through a 20% stake in the Sishen iron ore coal, as well as now the African iron ore transaction. And then, as you saw on the video clip, we've also joined hands with Tata to put down clean energy in South Africa, predominantly through wind turbines, which is just before the conference started, we went up to Mammoth over the weekend, and to me it was just amazing to see the amount of wind turbines that you guys have here in America. For us, it's fairly new in South Africa. We don't have that many. The legislation makes it very difficult for us to put up, if I say legislation, it's more from an environmental point of view, makes it very difficult for us to construct large wind turbines. A lot of the green people is quite against, sort of the damage that the wind turbines have, specifically on the bird species in certain regions in South Africa. One of the challenges that we have from a project point of view is that our executive committee have got a viewpoint that by 2020 they want to double up on the business. This puts a huge amount of pressure on projects within the organization, and we've most probably got where a lot of the organization is sometimes getting smaller because of pressure from a financial point of view. The projects departments are continuously growing to be able to put down, the projects, whether it's opening up of new mines or whether it's improving of existing operations. The requirement for projects is just phenomenal. It's just growing continuously. So there's definitely a huge challenge the whole time that we have to face. So the need for change, as I previously said, there's different approaches to project management because of all the different mergers and acquisitions that came along. Even just between the different departments, if you talk about the IT department, you talk about our research and development department. If we talked about, for instance, a project mandate, the document that the R&D department talked about and that the document that the IM department talked about is totally, the whole intent of the document is not the same. There was also different methodologies being used in the organization, so a lot of confusion. There was no common language and systems and processes that was mapped within the organization. There was no visibility of projects. I think just by putting up your hand, how many organizations are managing their projects on Excel spreadsheets? Okay, there are some hands. By having projects or your project request and the pipeline on Excel spreadsheet, there's really no visibility. And I'm not sure how executives make a decision on which project should be selected if they don't have a really clear understanding of what's happening in the organization. There was very little to basically no transfer of knowledge within the organization, from one project to the next. Even more difficult when it comes from one mine to another mine. These mines operate quite in isolation. So if one of the mines have got some lessons learned, but the other mine have very much the same sort of project, there's the chances that they would have transferred knowledge to the other mine was very limited. Poor project support functions. At most of the mines, we didn't have any project support functions. It was the project manager and himself that managed basically everything, except obviously for our larger projects. And larger mega projects normally gets managed, in a proper professional way. But the challenge is always, what about all the other projects that we do in the organization? There were obviously a poor ability to make the best investment decisions. As I already said, if we've got everything on Excel spreadsheets, how do we make decisions? The business case that we came up with, and do not ask me really exactly how the company that assisted us with this whole endeavor got to all the values, but our capital, or annual capital budget is in approximately $670 million. looking at some of the textbooks, and so they said, but if you implement a proper project management system with proper organizations that support it, and you can make the right decisions, you can estimate to save up to 10% just by making the correct project decisions within an organization, which will obviously result for us into a $67 million saving per annum. Now, one of the big challenges is, how do you measure in terms of whether I actually took the right decision in terms of which project to go ahead with, because the market conditions change tremendously. So that's definitely one of the challenges that we currently face with in terms of how to measure always whether the right decision was taken. But I'll share a little bit later with one of the examples that we have with one of our projects where there was definitely a huge, I don't want to already say saving because that I'll preempt in terms of what I'm going to say, but I'll get to that point when we get there. So in terms of the approach, the roadmap that we followed, it was really a bottom-up approach. Originally, when we started with the project, we didn't have executive buy-in. We started by establishing a COP because it was really the people in the organization that were busy managing projects that said, but listen, we need to do something here. Especially the senior project managers at our head office that were running around between the mines and the regions that had to do projects. They had to change the way that they're doing projects every time they go to a different mine. And sometimes you're managing projects at various mines, so you have to, stay really on top of everything to remember, exactly what's the requirements at the different business units. So what happened was we created a COP, and the COP stands for Community of Practice, where we invited project managers to participate and to say, but listen, how are we going to change the way we're doing in Exxaro? We've also established another COP for project management systems, and we gave those guys, which consisted of people from the IT department, people that were passionate about project systems in the past, project managers. It was a whole combination of a lot of people. We also included some external companies also into the COP for project systems and said, you guys go out, evaluate project systems in the world, and come back with a recommendation in terms of what system should we implement in Exxaro. And while they were busy, the COP for project management started drafting a process in terms of how we're going to change the way that we're working within Exxaro. One of the first things that we said is that we have to get a common standard and language to be able to proceed. We also have to assess our maturity to understand where we are, where's the gaps, for us to be able to say, what's going to be the impact of going forward. We also started with a process where we started mapping project management processes that was quite unique within the mining industry. I think most mining companies talk the sort of same language. If you go to pharmaceutical companies, or you go to IT companies, they've got their own lingo in terms of terminology and how they express and talk. I think if you throw a lot of IT lingo to me, I'll just also frown, not understanding necessarily what you're saying, because I'm not the IT specialist. I'm still battling to figure out how to tweet. On our way here, one of my colleagues said, he followed some of the activities that was going to take place here on the Twitter. I said, no, I know about Twitter, but I don't know how to get into it. I know it's on my cell phone somewhere. I just need to find it. Also, what we said is, for us to be able to roll out all these different processes and systems, implementing of systems, we need an organization to be able to support this going forward in the organization. So there were a huge restructuring process that also started when we started with this initiative. While we were doing that, Exxaro then also started with an initiative that we called CIAIA. It's a term in one of the black languages in South Africa. And the CIAIA was all about, understanding what are we doing in organization and how we can improve that and how we have to restructure to support what we're supposed to do. So what happened is the CIAIA project team took our initiative into theirs, and all of the people that were sort of quite passionate about changing project management suddenly became nominated as representatives on the CIAIA project, where we physically had to sit down for 6 months and map all the processes related to project management within the organization, and how all the project management processes can integrate, or not can, how they should integrate with all the other processes, typically like your supply chain management, procurement, How do we go about procuring equipment for a project? There's your SHEC, safety, health, environmental processes. There's so many various processes that we had to map all of the integration points into. All those processes were then used to define positions, and also, together with the positions, what is the roles and the responsibilities of each of those positions that will be responsible for each one of those activities. We then appointed a company that helped us to develop our systems as well as integration, and we're going to get to a slide explaining our integration, and then we rolled out. Now, Exxaro is, in terms of size, we must probably about between 10 and 15,000 people. The mapping of the processes took about 6 months. While this was happening, we started with the restructuring, where physically almost all of the positions within our company were re-advertised. People had to reapply for the positions. We created regional offices that we didn't have in the past. We've got provinces in South Africa, and we created regional offices to support the mines in those specific provinces. And a lot of the sort of shared support functions were all pulled into these regional offices, which included the project management. The positions that were advertised and then filled took about also 6 to 9 months. The systems, developing of the systems, integration, testing, took us about 3 months, and then we started rolling out. And the rollout took place over a 9-month period, where we physically had to go and train approximately 700 people. It's between 600 and 700 people in the organization on how to do project management. And we physically had to train everybody from the engineering guys at the mine that also do projects, all the way to executives, for them to understand how to get information out of the system. The various people from typically like your procurement departments, your legal departments, all of those people had to be trained on the systems. Just quickly regarding the solution, so the intent of the solution that we implemented was to say, well, we're standardizing across Exxaro systems, processes, templates, and reporting. We align to support our Exxaro strategy. There's another slide that we're just going to quickly show what is our strategy. And extremely important is one of the classification fields that we have is specifically asking questions in terms of how do we support our strategy. We had a common PPM or triple PM language that we've implemented to make sure that everybody talks the same lingo in the organization. We created real-time visibility, making sure that everybody understands the project funnel. We also implemented a system where we can track everything that, as it starts from the idea management process all the way to benefits tracking within our integrated systems. We created a lot of dashboards so that people, whether you're a project manager, whether you're executive, whether you're a project accountant, everybody have quick and easy access to information. In terms of line of business integration, one of the requirements were definitely that there should be a single source of information. There should be one system that we should work on. In the past, especially on mega and large projects, every one of our projects, basically, whatever the consultants recommended, that's what they used. There were really never a standardization in terms of the project systems that we used. And every time you start up, it's all new, lessons learned from the start. Because going from one system to another system is not the same. You can't have the same rules that apply from one going to the next. And also very important is training. One of the big advantages that we got through this whole exercise were that we've developed training material irrespective of your position within the organization. As I said previously, if you're a senior management level or executive, there's specific training for you to be able to understand how we do projects in Exxaro, because trust me, we had to train the executives as well. If you're executive, it doesn't say you necessarily understand how projects work, okay? You need to understand how to go and get information. Your cost controllers on a project have got their own unique training material that was developed. And all of our training were a combination of both system and methodology. You have to understand how we want to do this, let's say accounting in organization, project accounting, and physically how to work then on the system. So there was a combination of methodology and systems each time. Just a question, how many by putting up your hands, just how many of your organizations also use PMI standards? Basically majority. Anybody that's using Prince? Any other methodology that's implemented or something that's quite unique in your specific organization? So I think I should be correct saying that PMI, you're all familiar with PMI. What we've done is we've physically purchased all of the standards and other documentation from PMI on which we based our methodologies. So we said that's the foundation, but as PMI also in PMBOK say you have to adopt, that's a principle and a basic standard that needs to be in place. We've grown it to include typically like construction management, but construction management within South Africa is totally different, as we learned sometime later, and we're going to get to another point where we've implemented a system specifically to support our project in the Congo. We've realized that construction management in America and construction management in South Africa is two different things. Again, it's not the same language that we talk, and it's not the same way that we work. Just getting back to the strategy, Exxaro strategy, ensure Exxaro sustainability, protect and build Exxaro's reputation, develop Exxaro's leadership and people, improve Exxaro's portfolio, and achieve operational excellence. When we register a project within our system, there are questions that we ask to specifically say how we are supporting these strategic focus areas. And when we do portfolio management, these are also the fields that we use to be able to say, will the projects fall more into the growing of the portfolio? Because you can't necessarily compare, the various projects that typically fall under portfolio with sustainability. And again, there's some more information that I'm going to share on that one. We've also implemented what we call a governance framework that stands on 4 pillars. The one is the financial pillar, the project governance pillar, system governance, and organizational governance. Now, the financial governance is all about how do you apply for funds within the organization? What's the gates that you have to go through, and what do you have to have in place? And also for the executives to be able to say, but every time they have to take a decision on whether this project is going to go forward, that in a month's time they use the same criteria to make those decisions. Project governance. We've got, as I showed on the previous slide, we've got the PMI standards. So don't come with your own set of standards into the organization. This is how we do it within Exxaro. System governance. As I said previously, with a lot of our other projects, everybody used their own sort of systems. If I wanted to use Cost Track and the other guy wants to use some other system or Excel or whatever, it was free for all. Where with our system governance, it's absolutely clear. SAP is our ERP system, Project Server is our project management system, and that's it. And then there's integration between them. Organizational governance, don't underestimate that. For us, it was extremely important to say, what's the type of resources that you can use on a project? What's the typical, and it's always a guideline in terms of what's the organizational structure that typically have to work on a project, so that if we've got 2 very similar projects, that the one project manager do not have an organization of 20 supporting people, and everyone only have 5, there needs to be some sort of standard in terms of how we make decisions on how many resources we put on a project. Also, what's the roles and responsibilities of those people that have to support the project? A lot of this really is, I can almost say, some of the softer issues that we still today sometimes struggle with to make sure, to get the people to understand, what's the sort of guidelines. Something small like, what do we pay these people? Because one project manager says, but listen, I need a cost engineer on my project, and I've got a CV, by the way, of a relative of mine or whatever it might be, and this is the sort of salary. We've got now guidelines in place to say, what's the sort of salary bandwidth for these various people that's coming in to work on projects. It's easy if it's permanent employees because there's governance for it. But in our environment, the majority of our people that work on our projects are contractors. And so it's extremely important that you do have some guidelines in terms of, roles and responsibilities, what's expected of those people. They need to be trained to make sure that they conform to our processes and they don't just come with their own idea in terms of how things need to be done. Okay, if we just quickly talking about the organization, if we just look at the organization, EPMO, I think a lot of people know what it stands for, Enterprise Project Management. Some other terminology that I'm going to use as I go through some of the slides. We've got a PMCOE, Project Management Center of Excellence. Then we've got the EPSO, which is the Enterprise Project Support Office. We've got regional project support offices, and then we also have just project support offices. Now, every large and mega project typically have its own PSO. All of this makes up basically our EPMO, but we do have a different department where all the project managers basically fit into. And these guys are responsible to support the project managers. So on the next slide, if we just look at the structure, we've got a group general manager of projects. We call it grey positions. Grey beard guys, you know, with a lot of experience. That's the owner of, or the governance owner for project management within the organization. The project managers that's responsible for mega projects report directly into our governance position. But there's not a direct line between our technical services and these guys. We've got a group manager projects where we've got program and project managers reporting to the program managers. Then we've got the manager PMCOE and support with all of the different PSOs, the RPSOs, the EPSO, and the PSOs that support these mega projects. So if we just look at the lines, you'll see from a governance point of view, this guy applies governance to the regional guys and to the people at head office. The PMCOE, the Project Management Center of Excellence, have got positions that's responsible for project methodology that physically compiles all of the documentation and processes and keep those updated. So there's basically a dotted line to support this. This is really, there's only 3 positions in this area, grey positions. When we started creating the organization, this is the structure that we've created for the PMCOE, the Project Management Center of Excellence. We've got a methodology positions, assurance, knowledge management. Extremely important for us was to say, but how are we going to keep and capture and also nurture the knowledge management within the organization? You know, every project that we do, there's a wealth of knowledge that every time gets that gets learned. And because we use so many contractors, a lot of that knowledge goes, you know, sort of disappears when the project de-establishes. So we had to look at how do we capture all of that knowledge and build that back into the next project that has to start up. We had a portfolio management position, a project risk management, quality assurance, the person that's responsible to start doing audits on our projects, and we've got phenomenal results. From that, since we've appointed a person as a dedicated project auditor or a quality assurance person, we've also included into the people's performance contracts their audit results. And it's amazing how we had absolutely not a single project manager that was compliant to our governance processes in 2012. At the end of 2013, we had about 10 project managers that were fully compliant because it determines whether they're getting bonuses and, you know, what's the salary increases that they're going to get for the next year. And the rate at which we get now project managers to be compliant is just growing exponentially. It's definitely something, if you want to improve project management in the organization, make sure that you've got an auditing function and that you include that audit result into the people's performance contracts. We've also got a document configuration position, which a lot of people underestimated the need for somebody in the organization that maintains all of our processes, our standards, our guidelines, our training material, our templates. It took me many months to convince my manager that I need a person like that. I'm glad to say that towards the end of last year, they finally gave me a permanent position. I've got somebody that's already in that position, but the position were not vacant. I didn't physically have that position, although there was a large need for it. And now that we've got that the person and a position, you won't believe how much my manager is utilizing that person. Previously, I didn't really understand the need for such a position. What this department is responsible for is obviously portfolio management. A lot of these I don't have to elaborate on. I want to skills transfer, assist with project startup. This is one of the very important things that the PMCOE is responsible for. to make sure that every project start up correctly, make sure that they take all the lessons learned from other projects, build it into their project. It's extremely important that you assist these projects, with their startup process. As I said, also I talked about the audits. This is typically what our EPSO, the Exxaro Project Support Office, looks like. We've got the regional project support office managers, and the functions that we have there is typically your resource manager, your senior project or project planners, your accounting, doc control, project administrators, people that's there to support the project manager, to make sure that the project manager don't get bogged down in a lot of administrative activities, so that he's free to rather manage more projects effectively, than get clogged down, running around with an invoice to get an invoice signed. That's one of the things that we typically had in the past. Towards the end of last year, we've changed those two departments, the PMCOE and the EPSO. We've merged those two because there was sometimes some conflict in terms of how those two departments worked. The PMCOE had a governance function, the EPSO a supporting function, but there were a lot of times, sort of finger pointing and stuff, so there was a decision taken to say, but let's merge these two departments. So what it looks like currently now is we've got project methodology still, with coaching, mentoring, training, and all of this into project methodology, controls, project planning, project management systems that we didn't have in the past. We underestimated totally the amount of support that you require to maintain something like a project server in a big organization that we've got. We maintain the risk, the quality, resource management, and then the RPSOs that we also have. I've just put in here one PSO, and normally there's quite a number of people, but we've got various PSOs. For every, as I said, larger mega project, there's another PSO. And this is basically now the A-team in the organization, the guys that goes in that support the projects. Okay, just from a system point of view, we've got EPM 2010 as the core, the center for project management. And around EPM, we've got integration via PS Link from TPG into our SAP HR, SAP PS, and SAP CO. We also have requirements to integrate SAP PM. One of the first things that we now have to integrate is SAP GRC and SAP CLM. SAP GRC is the risk management module of SAP. We used to manage project risk management in EPM, but we were told by our grey guys last year that the whole organization is going to go risk management on GRC, so we have to integrate GRC with EPM. We also have integration into Primavera. In the construction industry in South Africa, I'm not sure about here, there's a lot of companies that use Primavera, and we need to be able to make sure that we can verify those people's project schedules, and on certain high level, we need to be able to pull those project schedules into Project Server. So our integration works that you physically upload some of the construction companies, some of their project schedules are in Microsoft Projects, but as I said, for those that's in Primavera, it's not a problem. We load it into Primavera, and then we physically, there's a flag that we select which activities, and typically it will be the summary activities, summary tasks, and it will also be those tasks that might have a impact or relationship to activities on another schedule from another contractor. You just select those, yes, 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 and it pulls into the project schedule, or the main project schedule that's running in EPM. Some additional requirements that we have at the moment is for a scanning solution where we can physically scan documents directly into SharePoint. We've already implemented it at one of our business units at the Makwa Sands, where we've scanned more than 1 million documents already. Okay, and it's working absolutely brilliantly. We're barcoding all of our documents. If you go onto our project SharePoint site, when you create a new document, all our templates are barcoded. The barcode reads information from your SharePoint library, and that it pulls into that library, so the moment you scan that document, the scanning solution knows exactly where to go and put that document. So it saves a lot of time from a document management point of view in terms of, where does the document need to go. But we've got Kodak. We implemented Kodak. Kodak's got they developed an integration solution together with Microsoft. And it's a fairly quick and easy sort of setup, where you say what criteria on the document it needs to read, and map that back into your SharePoint and put up all the rules, the sort of business rules in terms of where to physically go and upload that document. If anybody's interested, we physically have got a document that describes this whole process of how documents get uploaded. We've made sure that our scanning solution adheres to all of the ISO standards. It had to also comply in South Africa to our the Tribunal, what do we call it, ICT Act, Information and Communication Tribunal Act. Okay, so there's a lot of legislation that we also had to comply to make sure that from ISO 9001, 20000, and all of those, our documentation and the scanning, conforms to all of those principles. But it's documented, so if anybody would like to get that, you can just send me a mail so that I can send you the document. But it works really nice. Also, we've got the requirement to integrate our SHEC medicals and inductions and incident management into EPM, although our incident management for projects and construction sites are purely managed within our SharePoint sites. But we do have an external system that we have for the operational areas. For projects, we're running into in the EPM incident management system. Very important is that we've also got our idea management system, and we've basically screened all of the ideas even before we registered it on Project Server. One of our lessons learned when we still had Project Server 2003 in our IT department were they just cluttered, the amount of stuff that comes into your demand, as part of your demand management or your portfolio management. And we said we want to keep our portfolio management and Project Server fairly clean. So TPG has developed for us a SharePoint workflow system where anybody in the organization can go and log an idea. It workflows automatically to certain people to identify, whether this idea should be registered as a project or not. Just in terms of the system integration, we've got ECC 6 and, as I said, EPM 2010 on that side. Our project sites, and I know you can't most probably read here, the intention is not for you to read here, just to explain our project sites. Have anybody attended the session from Duck, what's Duck's surname? Duck's, have you pardon? Duck's, yes. Anyone attended his presentation yesterday on project on SharePoint sites and utilization, collaboration project sites? Something that came out from his presentation that's really valuable is a lot of people see SharePoint as a document repository where you just go and throw documents. For us, we've developed a complete solution within SharePoint where we support all projects, and we've got various different templates for different types of projects. But we support the projects, from a project definition, there's registers within SharePoint for project definition, monitor control, communication, the supply chain, the contract registers, contract modification registers for your design engineering, stuff like your car, corrective action request, and all these other areas that you have, typically like a non-conformance reports. All of those have been developed into our SharePoint using fairly standard SharePoint functionality, although we also have IPMCMS that we've implemented for our Miyoko project because of bandwidth reasons and some additional functionality that we didn't have at that stage to support those projects. But it's really I can almost say, a one solution, one-stop solution where a project manager, when his project start up, we load the right template for him, and irrespective of whether he's busy with construction or he's busy with a study phase, a bankable feasibility study or whatever, he's got the right site with the right functionality, with the right templates already uploaded into his project site so that he can manage his project. For each one of these, you'll see that there's basically a module below. If you click on it on the SharePoint site, you'll get a drop-down that will, if you go to financial management, the budget management, invoice register, and all of those will lie under your financial management. This is typically what a project site landing page looks like. And this one is our Miyoko project, the project that we're opening up in the iron ore, or the iron ore mine that we're opening up in the Congo. Apologies. Their landing page. So you'll see that there's pictures of the harbour. We're doing a harbour extension also there in Point Noir. Just in terms of methodology, I'm going to go fairly quickly through all of these. We've got defined processes that all the projects need to go through. It's a gated process, so between each one of these, typically study phases for a medium, large, and mega project, there's a definite start and end. So each one of these are viewed as a separate project where you initiate, plan, execute, and close. And if the project is approved to go into pre-feasibility, again, initiate, plan, execute, close. I'm not going to elaborate too much on this. As I said, in terms of our ideas, we've got a process that we have to go through that takes the project through an idea management process where we prioritize the stuff and then only we register it into EPM. So from a system point of view, all this highlighted in red runs in SharePoint functionality that TPG has developed, and the portfolio analysis and project execution is being run in Project Server. Just some of the fields that we use when we register projects, the strategic fit, as I already explained, how it supports our strategy, typically size, project type, which regions. All of these are extremely important information for executives to be able to filter and slice and dice for information. One of the very important fields is to say whether these projects are growth, improvement, responsibility, or sustaining. Because when you do portfolio management, you can't compare a project that has got 0 NPV like a sustaining project, where a responsibility project, where it's got a safety incentive. You can't compare such a project in terms of their criteria with a growth project where we're going into new markets. So this is one of the very important classification fields that we use to understand. But when we want to approve projects, we only look at, let's say, growth projects, and we compare growth projects to each other, and then we compare improvement projects to each other. And from executive point of view, they can make a strategic high-level decision to say, how much money are we going to spend in Exxaro to grow our business? How much money are we going to spend to improve and sustain our current operations? In terms of sizing, very important for us because we realized, you can't have the same rules for all projects. So we use these criteria: the financial estimate of the project, the total value, the departments and disciplines that will be involved or that will be affected, the complexity of the project, the duration, and the impact, whether this project will have impact only on let's say, in the plant at one of the mines, whether the whole mine or the entire organization. We then classify projects into mini, small, medium, and large and mega projects. There's also governance associated to this, where many projects may be done by the business units themselves. If I talk about a business unit, that's typically a mine. Okay, and the business unit IRC, it's the investment committee that can approve the funds. At the mine can approve these projects. But the moment the project is a small or medium, those projects have to be managed by the regional project management officers. Okay, and the regional officers have to approve the small projects. The moment it goes to a medium, it has to be the commodity department that has to approve that. So typically, a commodity department will be the coal division or the ferrous division or the energy division that has to approve those projects. Large and mega projects get managed by our head office senior project managers. We've got 21 main project types. Our EPM is a project management system for any project and organization. So whether you're doing energy, safety, exploration, mine closure, any project and organization, irrespective of the size, get managed through Project Server. Okay. So let's just look at typically what some of the information that we get out of our system to be able to take decisions. Very important is data integrity. We've got a dashboard which tells us missing data fields. So we look typically at, this is overall, we've got currently approximately 577 projects. Maybe I must just also add, we don't just do projects in Project Server. We also do all of our technical services and consulting work. We also do in Project Server, EPM. People have to do their timesheets, have to capture their timesheets, whether it's consulting, technical services or projects. But what we do is we then obviously look in terms of where are the places where there's problems so that we can make sure that the data the whole time is correct, so that the reporting is not it's not a garbage report that we supply to senior management. So there's missing data field and conflicting data, understanding, where's, if somebody, for instance, say, but I've got a project and it's in the bankable feasibility, but the project is sized as a small project, we immediately know there's a problem because it's only our medium, large, and mega projects that have to go through those concept, pre-feas, bankable feasibility, and implementation phases. Our mini and small projects is just initiate, plan, execute, and close. That's it. Okay. We've got dashboards that's been, or we've got Excel reports that was developed that makes slicing and dicing very easy. So this has already been typically filtered. You see this at 577 have gone down to 377. We can immediately see now large, medium, mega, mini, small projects. You know what's the amount of projects, and any one of the management people, project managers, can physically go and filter out and say, but show me only infrastructure projects, or the region, let's say our captive region, only want to see their projects. They can immediately go and filter their projects, and it will pull up then pie charts and graphs that will specifically just show them their sort of their information. Here we've got a graph or a pie chart that shows the number of projects per region. You can see Congo, captive, our KZN, these are provinces. Our size counter, how many projects do we have in the mega, medium, large, and you can see the small project makes out the majority of the projects. There's typically graphs like this that shows you what is the value of the projects, in the regions and those different areas. Do we have to create a mix of projects to support our strategy? Remember those classification fields I showed? So immediately, this is just a counter, but we also have the same one that shows you physically the value. I'm not necessarily allowed to share all the values with you. So we'll just use the counter for now. But you can see the number of projects that we have that will be growing our business, improvement, sustaining, large, and responsibility 47 projects. The life cycle phases. So if I filter only the medium, large, and mega projects, I can immediately see where are those projects currently. I've got 39 projects that sits in implementation. Sorry, I've just played around with filtering. Obviously, there might be more, but just gives you an indication, typically in terms of what's the information that you can pull out, making sure that you've got the right classification fields. If you don't have the right classification fields and you set up your business rules beforehand, you won't be able to get information that you can use to make the correct decisions. This is an extremely valuable graph for us. It says the number of projects at our different mines. You see here, this is our Grootegeluk coal mine. It's one of the biggest coal mines in the world. And as I showed on that one graph, it's the biggest coal plant, coal beneficiation plant in the world. But look at the amount of projects here, 121. After we pulled this graph, we realized, but listen, this project support office that needs to support these projects are way too small. We understand why these guys don't make their targets, why they're battling the whole time, why the quality of the data, typically in the project schedules, are so poor, because the poor project planner have got 50 project schedules that he needs to maintain. So this immediately gives you indication in terms of where you have to spread your resources, but you can't just look at count. You have to take the complexity and a lot of other information also into consideration. Just as in terms of project type counter, what this is quite useful is understanding what type of projects we do also gives us indication of what type of templates and processes we need to develop and where we have to focus first. You can see here equipment. Equipment replacement on the mines are one of the major types of projects that we have to do, and quite frequently. And so we have to develop specifically the type of templates that they need to make their work much easier. We've typically also identified in terms of our IM projects, information management. Okay, there's a huge need for them to change some of the templates to make it more acceptable for the IT guys, because the standard, like the project plan that we use for all other projects, is not necessarily relevant in their area. So just in closure, extremely important, some of the key challenges that we had at the start is executive buy-in. We didn't have that at the start. We had to continuously convince the senior management, why we're doing this. The lack of internal skills that we had from our point of view, not from the implementation partner that we had, but from our side, because we didn't work on project systems really in the past, we didn't really have the right combination of skills to work together with the implementation partner to implement project server, which caused a lot of problems. I think it only started to happen towards the second half of last year, about 2 years after we started with the project. And the tipping point started when we started showing them the information. we've got what we call a MANCO report, a management committee report, where we took the top 20 important projects in Exxaro, the 5 most important projects per region, and we've created a dashboard of those, and we've started sending them these reports to say, this is how the most important projects in your regions are progressing and the status. And the moment that started happening, people started asking more questions. That was the one thing. The second thing is they didn't have really much of a choice because of the integration that we've got. If the people didn't work on the projects, they weren't loaded on the projects, we don't get our cost recoveries because we integrated with SAP. You don't do your timesheet, the project don't pay for your cost, and the cost center that pays your salary don't get the cost recoveries. Okay? So towards the end of last year, we were sitting with, we were 185 million behind on cost recoveries. And management started, calling us in. The senior financial CFO called us in and said, listen, what's happening here? Here's chaos, 185 million. We need that money. Okay, and then we started explaining to them, but listen, this is how the processes work. Okay. Previously, they were sort of, they hear that, but didn't really understand the impact. The moment they started seeing and feeling the impact, things started changing immediately. There were some critical decisions taken towards last year where they, from a financial point of view, they instructed us to change our integration between EPM and SAP to actually give more power on the EPM side. EPM actually became the master for the resource information, and where SAP HR used to be the master of the data. Now EPM is the master of data. There was a lot of decisions that they started taking, and it was because of things like they started realizing financially, what's the impact, and they started seeing the reports that came through to them. Before that, it was a bit of a battle. Bandwidth, big problem for us in Africa. We spoke to some of the Microsoft people yesterday, and you guys are very privileged to have good bandwidth. In a lot of the areas where we implement projects, a lot of the new mines that we're opening up, we don't have bandwidth. Even within some of within our city, sometimes we've got issues and problems with bandwidth. So it's a challenge, especially because everybody has to work on project server, irrespective of which business unit you're in. So if there's no bandwidth, the lines are down, the people can't work. So you have to put in some redundancy for that. Then just general resistance to change. They say the only change that people are not resistant to are the change in their pockets. Okay. Then technically disadvantage, the BC guys, before computer guys. Long service user community, legacy. But we used to do it like this. It doesn't work like that, In 1985, we used to do it like this. Getting that out of people is a bit of a battle. Okay, so what made EPM a success? Now, just looking almost at a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I'm not going to spend all of those, but just on the strengths, that's not my stomach. Okay, we've got a lot of people with a lot of attitude, good attitude and passion to make this a success. The organizational redesign, if we didn't do an organizational redesign so that we've got dedicated people to support this, this would not have worked. It would have been a failure. Okay. The systems and the ERP integration, again, no integration into the ERP system, management is not going to believe what information because there must be a single source of information. System expertise, especially from the supplier that assisted us, made this project a success. Great vendor relations. We've been interacting with the guys from TPG in South Africa, the USA for our IPMCMS module that we use for our Miyoko project in the Congo, and also the guys from Germany for our PS Link SAP integration. And it's not just by saying, we've got good relations. With these guys, we've built really a solid, because we were so dependent on them, okay, for the success of our project. We didn't have all the knowledge of what needs to be done to implement a system like this. Plus, we didn't have the knowledge within our own people to support what we were doing. We appointed people. We appointed power users, system power users. We appointed project planners, all of those, but they were not knowledgeable. So TPG really stepped in to support us to make this a huge success. And then also another company that's been supporting us in South Africa from a SharePoint point of view is Intervate. and we've got really good relationship with these guys. It's nice that, sometimes our relationship is such that something needs to be done urgently. We can contact them and tell them this needs to be done. They can very quickly do it. They've got access into our servers, we call it server accounts and stuff. They can make changes without even us receiving the quotation, okay? Because there's a trusted relationship. We know they're not going to overcharge us. They know we're going to pay them eventually. Joking. Okay, looking at lessons learned. As I said, get buy-in from Exxaro right at the start. Reduce your implementation risk through a phased approach. We went the big bang approach. Everything in 9 months. Okay. One of our problems that we faced were we had to roll out the system before some of the people were appointed. I remember one of our regions, I went to that grey guy that you saw, that block there on organogram. I went to him, I said to him, listen, we have to go and train the people in that region, but there's no RPSO manager, there's no a senior project planner, there's no accountant that's been appointed. He says, Arjun, just go ahead and train him. I said, who? He said, whoever is in that region that's currently doing projects, just get them trained. Okay. So we ended up training people and retraining people. Don't go there. Measure your PPM maturity, okay, and do it continually to understand whether you're actually reaping the benefits. Do not implement systems and organization at the same time. Remember, we did systems, organization changes all in one go. You first have to get your organization sorted out, the people appointed, they need to understand the methodologies, and then you bring in the systems. Map system requirements into as much detail as possible. I think definitely a lesson learned from our side. We need to spend even more time. We spent 6 months mapping all of our processes, okay? But from a system point of view, we underestimated the amount of detail that we should map. But first implement a simplified expression of the process design, okay? Map in detail, understand your final intent, but implement slightly more, how can I say, less complex. One size do not fit all. Okay, it's extremely important that people need to understand that there are a difference between type, size, and phases of projects. Using system to drive change can be an advantage and a disadvantage. Okay, definitely advantage by putting the right criteria on people's performance contracts, but it can also be a disadvantage because a lot of people are resistant to systems. Effective formal change management, paramount, because when you start implementing, and the guys say, oh, we need to change this, need to change that, you start taking decisions without properly formulating and documenting what the impact is going to be. Standard good project management principles. Okay. Avoid custom development as far as possible by using off-the-shelf products. For us, typically stuff like PS Link for our line of business integration definitely paid off. Our SAP people in South Africa also recommended to us that we go PS Link because of the time it would have taken to develop or custom develop the integration between the two systems, where it was almost like a plug and play. Within 1 week, 2 weeks, the system is up and running. You just have to define the criteria for the integration, and thereafter to make changes is like really simple. So that definitely paid off and reduced the implementation time for us. Okay, plan for enough time to get the staff trained, competent, and confident. Now, if I can just ask you if you just reduce the volume here for me. One of the big dangers that you have. Okay. Okay. One of the big dangers that we've found is we train the people, okay? But after we train them, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily competent, okay? So you saw that guy swing around, and I'm not going to say that's on our Congo project construction team. It's not us, okay? The guys actually don't realize their incompetence just after they've been trained. So one of the things that we did from a lessons learned point of view is we implemented a mentoring program. To after the training, classroom training, the guys go back to their PCs and they sit and they work the same way that they worked in the past. So we've now got a dedicated department or a group of people that you saw in my organogram that's responsible for coaching and mentoring. So they go and sit with the project manager, with the accountant, and they take them, Okay, where you stuck. This is how you should do it. You click here. So we don't touch the mouse and the keyboard. You do it. But we sit and we explain to you. So more lessons learned. Implementation only starts when the system really goes live. Okay. Cost of the system is really the smallest part of the investment required. So don't always get a fright when you get a quote to implement and what the really cost would be to implement a standard project management system, processes, and everything in your organization. It's really negligible if you compare it really to the total investment value to support projects. Budget for continuous improvement and expansion of the system, because after we implemented, we only then started realizing, but this needs to change, this do not work, This we can improve. So there were continuously stuff that we had to change afterwards. Necessary resources and skills for execution are crucial, and invest in appointing and upskilling the personnel. Now just look at this one. This is also, no, I'm lying, it's not one of our teams, but in any case, coming back to coaching and mentoring. Okay, so these are the workers that we've trained, but at that means, so now we've got a coaching and mentoring guy. Okay. Very important from the coaching and mentoring guys. Okay. It needs to be somebody out of your own department that understands the business. You can't get somebody else to come coach and mentor. You can't. Okay? If he doesn't understand your business, he's not going to understand what is those final things. Look at this guy. I mean, those guys were all doing this. Eh? He just knew he had to come there and just coordinate what's happening here. He understood what's the requirements. Okay, and it's really important that you focus on this portion, the coaching and mentoring to support your people. Okay, future plans. I'm going to really just scan through these. Our PMC, IPSA, and RPSO, we've now basically merged towards the end of last year. Some additional positions that we said that we also require. Redefining the user roles and responsibility to make sure that we drive the correct KPIs. Okay, so we're busy redoing the job profiles of the people. From a system point of view, just some upgrades. We've already started rolling out our new 2014 project site templates. I'm sure everybody's going to get access to the presentation afterwards, so hopefully then you can go through the stuff that we're busy with. But there's a lot of stuff that's still on our radar that we're doing now. Very important is disaster recovery. We've actually never tested whether our backups are working. So that's one of the things that we want to go and do this year. Data cleanup, because when you put in a new system, there's a lot of garbage information, sometimes lessons learned as you go through it. So we're now in the process that we have to clean up all of that, all of that data, make sure that our project server are clean again. And eventually, not sure when, we need to upgrade to PPM 2013. What happened is when we had Project Server 2003, we never upgraded 2007. We started with 2003 only in our IT department, okay, in 2004. And that was the only department well, there were two departments, the R&D department and IM department, that was on 2003. And it was never upgraded to 2007. And then eventually when we wanted to go to 2010, we realized that, we were still on Office 2003. There's a lot of integration between the Office suites that's not working. So if you were still on 2003 and you sit with Office 2010, there's things that do not work. And we don't want to get in that situation where we fall that far behind in terms of the latest software. So one of the drivers is not necessarily new functionality. Hopefully there's obviously improvements in terms of things that we view almost as bugs that we would like to improve on. And obviously we would like to get those benefits. But we don't want to fall behind in terms of software again. So that's just one of our drivers. We want to just stay updated. One thing that we can't do, we've already had discussions with some of the people from Microsoft, we can't go to a cloud solution. Okay. Our project server is quite uniquely developed in terms of our SharePoint sites, our integration into our ERP systems, that cloud won't work for us. So it will have to be hosted on our internal servers. Kunrad, can you do it? Okay. Some additional things that we also, things that we have to do this year is we want to put a lot more focus on portfolio management. We did start rolling out already last year, but not successfully. Again, the problem with executive buy-in, understanding what's the benefits, have been a battle. So we're working on a strategy at the moment on how to get portfolio management really embedded, so that the guys, when they have to make portfolio or investment decisions, that they should be able to not even take a guess if the results are not viewed, or the portfolio in terms of what's the impact of the decision that they're going to make is going to have on the capital requirements going forward. It's something that's going really a bit slow at the moment with us. Okay, we don't use the prioritization of EPM because we've got different criteria that are a little bit more complex. So what we have is we've got a value that we do through our SharePoint and through that idea management system. That's already where we start putting in all the values to decide what is the ranking of ranking value of this project within organization. That value we pull in as one of the custom fields in portfolio analysis. We use those values together with NPV and IRR to make the portfolio decisions. We don't use EPM's portfolio drivers. Okay. And also we want to create a stable platform for this year because there's been so many changes and stuff. We need to just settle down. We don't want to make really any big changes for 2014 so that the users have got a fairly stable platform that they can work on. Any questions? We've got 3 minutes. I think it was a little bit of a snowball effect because we had those COPs. The COP basically had the ability. What we did is we were quite clever at that stage. I was part of the team where we wrote a document to say what is our mandate, the COP's mandate, and we gave ourselves the mandate to say the COP has got the mandate in Exxaro to decide on how we're going to do projects. Okay, because nobody else in the organization were willing to do that or had the authority to do that. Okay. But what was nice from the COP is we had representation from every single business unit. And they all had agreed in terms of, the need to get this standardized. So we at least had the senior project guys at every business unit. And it basically started building from there, They obviously went back to their business units and were sort of agents, for this requirement to implement this change process. So the COP guys were really the guys that sort of drove this in the organization. Is that answering the question to a certain extent?
No, it answers how you kind of built that groundswell of support, which is a challenge that I have. But, like I said,
Okay, sorry. The money portion, very easy. We were extremely lucky that, remember I spoke about CIA, we had the CIA project. Now the CIA project did not just look at what the organization changes that we're going to have, but also the systems. We at that same time upgraded from SAP 4.7 to ECC6. We upgraded from Office 2003 to Office 2010. We really revamped all the systems in Exxaro. And we then had the opportunity to say, but project management is one of it. Okay? So we piggybacked on that CII program, and we said to them, this is how much money we want. And so it was really, the timing was just perfect in the organization. We've got now our internal people that support our projects. So all of the people like planners and accountants and all of those, there's a combination of internal people. We've got very little permanent internal people. But the majority of our project support office people are contractors because we staff for our project demand. You know, it goes the whole time like this. From a system point of view, we've created a department with a manager project systems. Kunrad is sitting right there in the front. He's our manager project systems. He's got a lot of years of experience of EPM. I can almost say purchase. We got him, and he was responsible for the rollout of EPM at a lot of other clients and large organizations like Anglo and Dimension Data. My time is up. I'm still going to finish this. Stop. And then we appointed power users and started training those people. But while we were doing that, TPG have physically put down people from their side that are system experts to coach and mentor our people, like our power users. Until we got Kunrad to be our manager projects, TPG physically supplied us a person that was the manager projects, the manager project systems, okay, for Dries, how long? About 6 months, until we could recruit a person and have a physical handover. And that person that they've supplied to us is still with us for 1 day a week, okay, to make sure that there's consistency in terms of upskilling and training all of our people. Definitely. It really, I think I can just only compliment TPG because they've been really so open and supportive, because it's also for them a success story. Okay? It's paramount, it's important for them that Exxaro should be a success. We don't want to pull the plug on EPM. So whatever resources, whether it's the server specialists, whether it's the developers, whether it's a person like the one that we had for us, the manager project systems for 6 months, whatever we required, they physically put those people down for us for whatever duration we requested, or that they actually recommended in some cases to us, until they can also feel comfortable. What I can say also is our support system work at the moment where all of our first line support calls and second line support calls come directly to us. If our power users cannot resolve it, okay, they escalate it to TPG. TPG has got a call center. And our power users, if they can't resolve it, they escalate it to TPG. Yeah. Yeah. There's, what we did is we ran this initiative as a project. So we had a project manager that was responsible for this, so he had to physically go and get quotes from a system point of view. We had to physically go and get quotations from the companies that helped us to map all of our processes. We estimated, obviously we drafted the documents in terms of what's the requirements that we want to achieve, and so it was physically costed in terms of the requirements with durations. But we did get it wrong. We did underestimate the cost. We were about, I think, about 15% out on the total cost. Okay. Just in summary, yes, Microsoft PPM solution is suitable for enterprise deployments. So there were a lot of skeptics that said EPM can't be used on an enterprise. I think Exxaro is a fairly big company, mining company. If you look at the amount of projects that we're running projects all the way to over $1 billion worth of projects within EPM, it can be done. It is possible to raise the PPM maturity across an enterprise. It takes time, it takes dedication, it takes buy-in from executives. Implementing a PPM system can return huge ROI. I didn't even get to the point where I wanted to tell you or refer to one of the projects where the project costs have increased, but the return on investment is going to be phenomenal because the project methodology and systems identified gaps within the whole build-up of the project. There is no shortcut to success. Multi-year commitment is essential. This is not rolling out a project system like this is not a quick and easy thing. Integration to ERP systems are possible and important. There must always be a single version of the truth. Okay. Thank you, everybody.